What's up, guys? Welcome to your 7th tutorial again with me, Travis, of my bring back. This is the Java series because I kind of put it on the back burner, and then I look back to it and there's all these comments like, hey man, I'm looking for the next tutorial, hook me up brother, I'm getting addicted to this crap. Anytime you feel that I forget to do a tutorial, just shoot me like a message, or you guys can hit me up on Google Plus or something, because I'm pretty forgetful. I'm trying to do, juggle a ton of different things right now. So just give me a friendly reminder and we'll get it working here for you guys. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to clear out our starting point class again, and just set it up like that. We got to get rid of this scanner because we don't really need it, and there we go. We're going to work with our dog class again, and we're going to set up a couple of variables. Again, we have the dog. Well, actually, let me get into something else real quick. I noticed that when I did these tutorials, I labeled this class as dog with a lowercase d, and I forgot that you guys are pretty much just learning Java, and anytime you define a class, you want to have an uppercase letter, because lowercase letters are more for variables, more for methods, stuff like that. But you want your classes to be uppercase. So we're going to save this, and then we still have a red squiggly line. We're just going to hover over and say rename compilation to dog Java. Click that, and as you can see, it renames our class to uppercase dog, which you guys should probably get in the habit of doing, because other programmers will hate you and burn your house down. So now that you guys learned that, what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our starting point class and create two dog objects. One called Jerome, and again, before we did Jerome like this, but you want your variable names to be lowercase, so we're just going to say Jerome equal to new dog. Right? Nothing new. And we also want another dog object. We're going to call this dog Henry. Again, set this equal to new dog object. And now Henry and Jerome, they can do the bark methods, the dig methods, all that good stuff. But besides from our viewpoint, they're pretty much the same dog. They can't do anything different. All they can do is the same things, dig and bark. So we aren't really utilizing our dog class, because we want to define what a basically how our dog is constructed. We want to give it some specific details, because not all dogs are the exact same. They can all dig and they can all bark, but dogs are different breeds, they have different names and stuff like that. So when we create our dog, we want to give it some of those specifications. And how we do that is with something called a constructor. So we're going to jump over to our dog class and create a constructor real quickly. And how you create a constructor is basically by saying the same name as your class name. So we're just going to say dog, and we're going to give it parentheses, and go like this. Pretty easy, right? And basically this is the same. Let me see how I want to describe this. Alright, so I'm not for sure if I want to describe it like this or not, because I remembered learning Java, I was kind of confused by constructors, but I'm going to try and explain it the best to my best ability. So what we want this specification to do is, again, this is a constructor. It gives us a little bit more specifications of the dog that we want to create. So for example, if we want to create a dog that has a certain name and a certain breed, we're going to say both of those are strings. So we're going to set up a string variable called name and a string variable called breed. And now we're going to set up our constructor to be a string n and a string b. Now we can label this n and b however we want, but the thing I want you guys to realize is we are getting two strings that are being passed into this class. You're like, passed into this class? What are you talking about? So let's jump back over to our starting point class. After we save our project, we get these errors. So I don't know if this is getting kind of confusing or not, but again, I'm going to try and just walk you through the steps. Hopefully you guys can make the connections. If not, shoot me a comment and I'll try and elaborate on it a little bit more. But we're getting this error because it's looking for a certain kind of constructor, because when it creates this dog object called Jerome, we're calling a new constructor. Basically, we're creating a new object through a constructor because the constructor kind of starts building the object for us. So we're getting this error because we don't have this constructor within our dog class. But if we wanted to create a dog object that didn't have a name and a breed, we'd want a constructor that doesn't take in any information. And I know you guys are probably pretty confused right now, but I just want to show you guys this here, and hopefully you can make the connections later. So we're going to create two constructors because we can have more than one constructor for a class, like a dog object. And now we were going to save our project, and we don't have any more errors because when we call this new object to be created, whether it be Jerome or Henry, we're using this constructor that doesn't take anything in it. So it's basically being like, hey, I found a constructor, we're cool. We can still do the bark and the dig method, but you guys didn't want anything set up that's anything, you know, too specific. But we also have this other constructor where we can pass in two strings. As you can see here, string N and string B. So now what we're going to do is we're going to specify Jerome a little bit more, you know, give him some more details because he hates being defined the same as his friends. You know, no one sees him as a unique being right now, and he's like, you know, pissed when he's like, hey, I am not the same as Henry. I'm a golden retriever. And Henry's like a pit bull. So, you know, we are not the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to help Jerome and Henry out here, give them a little bit more specifications besides just them both being able to dig and bark. We're going to give them a name, and we're going to call this name Jerome. And we're also going to give him a breed, which again has to be a string, so we're going to say golden retriever. So what we could also do is, you know, set up a string here. We call it breed, or whatever you guys want, Bria, and we can call this golden retriever, blah blah blah, and we can put Bria right here, you know, stuff like that if we want to use variables. But you know, when anytime we do things within quotations, it's going to know it's a string, so we're just going to deal with it this way. So now when we create Jerome, we're giving this new dog object that's creating for us some additional information. Two strings. As you can see, one string named Jerome. The second string is golden retriever. As you can see, they're both strings. So now when it creates this Jerome object for us, it's going to look for a constructor that takes in two strings. So it's going to hop over to our dog class and be like, alright, is this constructor? And he's like, no man, you don't have any strings in there. He's like, oh, okay, is this the constructor? We're like, yeah, that takes in one string, and then we have a comma, and it takes in another string. Now the thing that might be kind of confusing for you guys is this N and this B, and why we set up this name and this breed here. Because basically when we call this constructor, this is the information that we're getting. So again, we have two strings. This one would be Jerome, and this one would be golden retriever. But that's just the information being passed in. So what we want to do is we want to set up the name string that we set up for this specific class equal to the string that we're getting in. So we're going to say N. So all we're doing now is setting up the string for our dog class to be equal to be the first parameter that's being passed in, which is again Jerome in this case. So you know, that's all we're doing. And I know again guys, this might be a little bit confusing. Probably check out the next tutorial because I'll probably make another one real quick elaborating on this a little bit more because we aren't really using these yet. But again, all we're doing is we have these string variables set up to name and breed, and we get some information when we're constructing the object again. That's why it's called a constructor. Is you know, we're getting some additional information. We want to use that information, so that's why we set up these variables, and we'll get into using these variables in the next tutorial here. But we can also set up Henry real quick. Even though there's a constructor that doesn't take anything within its parameters, we want to give Henry a little bit of, individuality. So we're going to give him a name, Henry, and we're also going to say Pitbull. So now Henry has a little bit more information. So what we can also do is, that's probably it for this tutorial, but just to show you guys, we get an error if we try and pass in an integer or something, because we don't have a constructor that takes a string and then an integer. We could set up another one like dog and string name, or n and integer like age or something, and then we could specify the name and the age of the dog according to how it's constructed when we call it within our starting point class. But just for this example, not to get into anything too complicated, even though it's probably pretty confusing for you right now, make sure you check out the next tutorial and we'll show you guys what we've actually done. So I'll catch you guys then, and have a good one. See ya.